And Antonio looked against the streets and started hanging out with breakdancers and graffiti artists who were popping up around New York. You can see how their influence started to appear in his high fashion work.
Another notable contribution to fashion was Antonio's push for street clothing to be seen as fashion. When Antonio and Juan moved back to New York City, they lived above Paragon Sporting Goods store and started incorporating sports gear into their work. Designers such as Norma Kamali, in turn, were influenced by his work and started incorporating the unconventional fabrications such as fleece and down-filled nylon into their high fashion designs. And this melding of street and runway clothing is something that is still dominating the world today.
This is actually very, very important. This image you see of Pat wrapped in a camping sleeping bag was seen by Norma Kamali, who then designed a long parka. And she actually called it the sleeping bag coat. She's on record as saying that seeing this photograph really influenced her to make this coat. And now, you know, we all kind of see the parka as not a sports gear item, but as a fashion item. And that's something that you can strictly trace back to Antonio.
And to Pat in it. In the bag.
She can make the sleeping bag look really good.
Thanks what you got.
By the end of his life, Antonio was undisputably one of the most famous people in the fashion world. And we say this a lot. It's, you know, a lot of people don't know who Antonio is right now. And we say that it would be like you guys thinking about if Marc Jacobs died tomorrow, and in 5 years you ask people, hey, do you know who Marc Jacobs is? And they have no clue. He really was that famous. And he had his hand in so many different projects. He was working on Vanity magazine. He was creative director of Fiorucci. He was writing books. He was doing ad campaigns for every major fashion house. And unfortunately, all this activity was cut short when he was diagnosed with AIDS. And he died in 1987. Juan Ramos died 8 years later in 1995.
There's Pat Fiorucci. There's Andy with Antonio's book. And there's Antonio. And that's our part, ladies and gentlemen.
Amen.
Now, Alvaro is here with us today, and Alvaro was a student at the Fashion Institute of Technology in illustration, but he also was a model for Antonio and worked in the studio in context of learning, and Antonio was his mentor. And so, Alvaro, we have some questions for you today, because this is very special having you here. We'd like to ask you, his work can be seen internationally, and particularly Orbey is one of his large clients that he has. Now, one question I'd like to ask you is, what aspect, if there was one aspect of working with Antonio and being in that studio during all different sort of drama and deadlines and art going on and ordering coffee, the whole bit, what single factor do you take with you to being the most important of that experience?
As great and as brilliant as he was as an illustrator, the greatest ever. What I learned most about Antonio was his loyalty to his friends. And what I learned was, I remember him telling me once, it's very important to keep your old friends with you all the time. And